Hey, it's Sean. Welcome back to our series on straps and chains. Today we're going to dive in a little bit deeper on straps. So straps are the easiest and most convenient way to secure things on open deck trailers, flatbeds, step decks, Conestogas. They're light to handle, they're easy to throw on, pretty quick to put into the winch and tighten up. So that makes them very tempting to try to use on everything, and we'll get into some of the drawbacks of what that could cause after a little bit. First, let's talk about working load limit. So the most common working load limit for a 4-inch strap is going to be 5,400 pounds. There are exceptions to that, but 5,400 is going to be the most common. And if you have a strap that's not marked, it doesn't have any visible markings on it, then the FMCSA rates them at 1,000 pounds per inch of width here in the United States. If you happen to be going to Canada, then they need to be marked. They would go to 0 working load limit if they didn't have a visible marking on them. One of the things to think about, if you have an older strap like this one that's right here, this one has the working load limit on it, but it's faded from time and use, and it's not visible anymore. These things do degrade from exposure to UV light and road salt and different things that they get exposed to on the highway. So it's a good idea, maybe once that working load limit isn't visible anymore, it might be worth considering replacing that strap just from a degraded strength standpoint there. One of the things we'll talk about occasionally too is the difference between working load limit and braking strength. In order for this strap to be certified at a working load limit of 5,400 pounds, when they test this material in the laboratory, it has to go to 3 times that in order to be able to be certified that. So this should go to over 16,000 pounds before it actually snaps. But that's in a perfect laboratory setting. No sharp edges, no winches, no hooks, no nothing. They put that healthy safety margin in there so that we've got the safety margin for in the real world where we do have it hooked up to a trailer. We've got it into a winch. We might have it on an edge of a piece of cargo or multiple different edges. But that's kind of where some of the caution comes in with handling straps. And we're going to give some examples here. We're going to move to a couple of different locations and talk about where straps are good and where they're not so good. But when you're tying down lumber, building materials, almost always going to be straps. It would be possible to tie down a load like this with chains, but it would be much more difficult and much more likely to cause damage to your actual product. So straps are kind of the choice here. So one of the places that straps are not such a great idea is for things that are made out of metal, especially if those things have sharp edges on them like this shear attachment here. If you don't have some padding in there, some kind of a softener or an edge protector, that strap can easily be cut by that edge, especially when you're going down the road. You get the vibration, the forces of the wind and everything. So here's an example of a strap that was on some plate steel without edge protection, and it's not completely cut through, but boy is it ever close. And of course, if that cargo had moved even just the least little bit under like heavy braking, if the cargo starts to move, it would slice right through, and then the cargo is completely unsecured and could end up on the highway. Another example of where straps maybe are not the best choice, or you want to be careful with placement and padding, would be a situation like this where this surface that this strap is on is not as wide as the strap, and there's a row of bolts underneath here, and you can see this edge of the strap isn't even tight. So that might not be the best place for that strap, but it has to, if it has to be there, then some padding underneath can help that, and careful placement. So now here's that same strap with a little bit of padding underneath, and all we've done is taken some cut pieces of a strap that got damaged somewhere and slid them in underneath there to soften those edges so the heads of the bolts are covered, and this edge here is now covered to give us the ability to position that strap a little bit differently. Another alternative might be looking for a better location to put your strap where you're on more of a flat surface instead of that uneven surface. And I know it's not always going to be the case where you can do that, but it's worth looking. So when you're on a more flat surface, you have the option of using these plastic edge protectors like this. These things work really awesome, But if those are not appropriate for the situation that you're working on, then pieces of cut strap can be used excellent, but you want to use them crossways to your strap like this so that you've got protection on both sides, so that if your strap moves a little bit, it's going to stay on the protector, and you want to fold them over double so that you've got 2 layers of protection in between. When drivers are first using those cut strap pieces, they have a tendency to want to put them in lengthwise like this because it looks neat and you kind of are used to your strap going over the cargo that way. But almost inevitably, when you tighten that strap down, the strap is going to slip off the edge of that edge protector and you'll have a 1/4 inch cut in your strap. And also, if the cargo were to move a little bit, then you wouldn't have any protection at all in that point. So a better way to use these is get your strap on the piece of cargo that you're gonna tie down, put it in the winch and get it finger tight, and then come back and take your edge protectors and slip them in. And that's another advantage to using them sideways, is you've got something to hang on to so that you can slip them in there, and with a little bit of tension on that strap, then they'll stay put until you tighten the strap down. With a strap with a hook, your tightening is all going to happen on one side, so a lot of times you need to bias these a little bit so that as the strap moves and when you're tightening it, it pulls it into position and it ends up in the right place when you're done. Another place that straps are maybe not the best choice is when you've got them going through a rounded area. We're using a cable reel here as an instance, but you might see this in a variety of different locations, pinholes on equipment, various different things. On this particular location, there's a rounded edge steel spool in here, so that's going to cause less damage to your strap. But whenever you see a strap start folding over like that, that's going to cause weakness in it. And if this were not a rounded edge, even something like a square wooden edge like a lot of these reels have, will cause damage kind of like this, where you see damage at one end of the strap and at the other edge of the strap. Because it's been down in there, there's more pressure on the edge of the strap and also where those wrinkles are in the middle. So inevitably you'll be forced to put straps in this position sometimes, but again, your cut straps can be a very good edge protector in those situations. So again, in this situation, a piece of cut strap can be a really good edge protector. If you mess up a strap, don't throw it away. Cut it up into segments. And to me, this one is a little bit too long. I like to have them about 18 inches, and this one's probably 24 to 28. But if you double them over, and again, get your strap in your winch and the finger tightness on it, and you can kind of slip it in there. Now this one being a little too long, I'm going to have to go around with it a bit more. But if you get that positioned in there properly, it'll protect your strap as you tighten it down. So straps are a very valuable tool, almost indispensable in the flatbedding industry these days, but they do have their limitations. So if you realize what their limitations are ahead of time and try to take some steps in advance to prevent those damages, then you won't have as many problems. When you're inspecting your straps, there is a certain amount of damage that is allowable without that strap being put out of service. For cuts like this, the absolute maximum that's allowed under the law is 3/4 of an inch on a 4-inch strap. If this was a 2-inch strap, then the maximum damage would be 3/8 of an inch. But just because that's allowed by law doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea, and it's going to attract attention from the motoring public and from enforcement officers. So you don't want to take those chances if you don't have to. But prevention is the biggest thing, realizing the hazards are there and taking steps to avoid that damage. So happy strapping!